What's the worst financial decision you've seen someone make? Story 1. Put everything in his GF's name to hide assets as he owed the IRS. The GF sold his business, cashed out his accounts and ran. Reply. My so's father did this, sold his business to an employee for $1 to hide it during his divorce. And was shocked when suddenly, the guy didn't magically give it back. He lost his entire business and inventory for $1. He was an abusive asshole, so couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Story 2. A guy in my fraternity got $30K for an undisclosed reason. I'm guessing a family death or something, and he bet it all on the Yankees winning one game. They lost. Reply. A guy who lived on my floor in the dorms inherited $100,000 from his grandfather's estate. He was suddenly very popular, buying all the beer, pizza, new car, golf clubs, etc. He was living large. His parents showed up about a month later to attempt to help straighten him out and recover funds. The golf clubs and other items went to a pawn shop, and they even enlisted the Raw to help watch out for the guy. Terrible for an 18-19-year-old to come into that kind of money out of nowhere with no reference or respect for how to handle it or how it was earned. Reply 2. It's good that they intervened before he blew it all. Story 3. My awful aunt was the trustee for my grandparents' estate. When they passed, she decided to sell their house to a random realtor who put a leaflet on the door. To the realtor, not with the realtor. It wasn't put on the market, and the aunt rejected a matching offer by me after I argued hard to actually list the house and have people bid on it. The realtor slapped a new coat of paint on it and sold it a couple of months later for literally $1 million more than she bought it for. Reply. And all, but she breached her fiduciary duty and you could have taken her to court for it. Edit. The aunt, not the realtor. OP reply. Yeah, I should have, but there was a lot going on at the time. I had newborn twins with 2 pre-existing kids already at home, and I was grieving the loss of my grandfather, who was one of my best friends my entire life. There were also more beneficiaries involved, so the personal loss to myself wasn't the full $1 million. Not that it wouldn't still be worth it, but with everything going on at the time I just didn't have it in me. And as you can probably imagine, my aunt would have dragged it out and fought tooth and nail to the bitter end. It was probably worth it for me to be able to cut that branch of the family off and walk away, rather than have to deal with them in such a manner for God knows how long. Edit. My friends, the pre-existing descriptor was clearly meant as a joke. Reply 2. Pre-existing kids sounds like a medical condition. Reply 3. I'm so extremely sorry for you. And pissed off. I too had a cunt aunt. My aunt gambled her $80,000 inheritance from grandma. Later she tried to take all the inheritance that was meant to be divided amongst the 4 remaining siblings when her sister died, even going to my mum to get her to sign her share over, which mum did part cause of elderly, part because she didn't want the money, not caring that she had kids struggling herself. I'm thankful my sister heard about it and reminded her that at least 2 of her sons and 1 of her daughters were near destitute, and that I had a massive uni debt I needed help paying off. My mum decided to sign away her share of the superannuation, bitten it the bank account balance. My aunt was pissed she didn't get it all, and had disowned everyone in the family. She's a narc and only obsessed with the veneer of money. Really pathetic. Another time she had claimed grandma's antique Singer sewing machine as her inheritance, thinking it was worth thousands. Later, when she found out it was only worth about $50, she threw it in the skip bin. My dad fished it out for me, but my sister claimed it, which is more than fine. My sister restored it and displayed it in her house. A couple years later, my aunt visited and saw the sewing machine and went on a tirade that it should have gone to a daughter, not a granddaughter, despite my dad literally pulling it out of the skip bin my aunt had thrown it in. I'm glad Dad had secretly grabbed a blanket that belonged to Grandma as a kid, had an older German fairy tale stitched on it, and gave it to me before my aunt learned of it, and threw it out too. My sister has also claimed that Doha, Story 4. Apply for a $5K loan, didn't accept quick enough so applied for another $5K loan, Both got accepted and ended up gambling it all. Reply. Okay, but did they win is the real question. OP reply. Nothing, 10K debt now lol. Reply. Oh, but you are forgetting the interest. So it's what, at least 14K. Story 5. My brother's ex fell for a Craigslist scam. She found a motorcycle and the guy needed money up front to pay bills, before she even saw it. We told her don't do it, it's a scam. She said she already sent $1,000. Of course, he was never available to show her the bike, and we found out from my brother after they broke up she actually continued sending him money in hopes of getting the motorcycle. I think she was out $3,000 by the end. Reply. My ex-husband got cheated out of tens of thousands of dollars just by being an overtrusting and underthinking seller. He had always wanted a piano his entire life. And one day a friend's father had passed and left them an incredibly amazing and very old piano that she had no use for, so gifted to him. He loved that thing so much. Tuned it and fixed it up. Then a giant ball of tragedies struck that put us in very bad financial situation, causing us to no longer afford where we were currently living and having to move to his family's old home, which is off the mainland and on an island. Being that the only way to get anything moved was by ship and extremely expensive, he had to sell a lot of things. And much to his dismay, the piano was just too big and too heavy to afford to ship there. So he put out a listing to sell it for a very reasonable price. It was an antique, in spectacular condition, made in the early 1900s and was worth at the very least $80,000. He listed it for a fraction of what it was worth due to time constraint on having to get rid of it before the move. Someone contacted him and offered to buy it. And here is where he did something monumentally stupid. The buyer offered to have a truck come and pick up the piano in a very quick time frame and asked if it would be all right to give my husband $1,000 up front and then the rest in 2 weeks when they got paid. I know he was under a lot of stress, but damn, that was dumb. You do not let anyone walk away with an incredibly valuable item without it being paid in full. As I'm sure no one here is shocked by, the person never paid anything else on the piano and just disappeared. The money from that sale alone was pretty much all we were going to have to live off of until he was able to secure a new job in the new location. Scammers are truly awful and many people need to learn not to be so trusting. It's sad. But it's just how it is. Story 6. A friend of mine who is very bad with money and his girlfriend bought some sort of water filtration system from a door-to-door salesman. He has to pay something like $300 per month for this filtration system. He was all stoked because it came with a free set of pots and pans. Fast forward a year and his girlfriend has broken up with him, moved out of the house, and he's had to sell his home because he can't afford to live there. The water filtration system is now sitting in a storage unit where he still pays $300 per month for it because he's on a 2 or 3 year contract. Sorry, the details are fuzzy. We have great water quality in my area. Reply. I work for a government agency in building maintenance. We get hit up by water filter and air filter clowns every couple months wanting to sell us some bullshit. We are obligated to sit through their sales pitch, so we aren't biased, but we all know it's bullshit snake oil. The homes and buildings that do need specialized systems like these usually have them installed on day one. Story 7. My supervisor took out a loan against their 401k to pay their rent because their credit cards were maxed. 2 weeks later, they bought a brand new $60K Lincoln with basically nothing down because her daughter just had a baby and I need a bigger car for that. Reply. I sat down with a guy to help him figure things out. He had a fair amount of credit card debt but nothing impossible. Just by consolidating it on a new card with 0% interest for even a year, it'd have seen amazing progress. Seemed like he had taken my advice. Next I saw him, it turned out he paid it off using his 401k. Story 8. A dude who owned a small convenience store in our town spent like $20,000 on fidget spinners. He was posting for like a year begging people to buy them as he would lose his business and his marriage was falling apart due to it. Reply. Why in the world would he need that many fidget spinners? OP reply. They were exceptionally popular and I suppose he thought he could make a mint during the fad. Story 9. My former sister-in-law had a thriving medical practice. She got so stressed that she joined the Scientologist and started taking their classes. She opened up 5-6 credit cards without telling my brother, maxed the cards out with hundreds of thousands in cash withdrawals, and gave it to that cult. Reply. Yeah, but did she rid herself of her harmful body the taunts? Edit. I fixed the spelling of the invented magical beings to align with the great L. Ron Hubbard's true intentions. OP reply. The last thing I want to do is engage her in conversation on the subject. First, the entire notion drives me crazy. Second, I don't have a good poker face. Story 10. My cousin spent 100% of her inheritance and took out a loan on her home to buy a second home in the mountains. Thing is, it was being pushed over by a mountain. And they thought they could fix it. I went and seen it, and every door jamb was crooked and the doors wouldn't shut. They took me down into the basement and they were trying to use I-beams to stop the mountain from pushing on the home. I was just like, what the hell are you doing? That won't solve anything. Fast forward 6 months and they asked me for $50,000 to help and I declined. Fast forward a year and the home collapsed and now they owe over $300,000 plus for a home that doesn't exist, and if they don't make the payments they lose their other house too because they used the original home as collateral and could not get insurance on the second home. Total money lost upwards of $700,000. Reply. This bothers me so much. I trust no deal and no one. I need to make sure everything is on order and this just goes up my spine. Whoever sold that to them dodged a bullet and found a sucker. Reply 2. Dumb people getting inheritances. Meanwhile, all of my grandparents were dirt broke and I had to earn everything I have. Is just life, I guess. Law. Story 11. A coworker I used to have worked every second of overtime he could for several years to save up for a house. When he applied for the house loan, he based his mortgage payment on all of the overtime he had been working. I tried to tell him that wasn't a good idea, but he didn't want to hear it. He ended up divorced a few years later because his wife got tired of him always working. Reply. When my wife and I bought our house, we based it off of just my income, so if she lost her job or I lost mine, we would be fine. Everyone told us we should get a super nice house with our income since we could afford it. 2 years later, my wife lost her job and now we have nothing to worry about. No added stress. It was the best decision we have made. Hey, stop. You're awesome. Subscribe for more. Yo.